thank you guys for having us and for being here so late in the afternoon. I know we were just talking about cocktails later and giveaways, but we are actually going to talk about something that's going to make your heart race even more, and that is epic email fails. So we're really excited about this panel. We've been chatting about just being in the email space. We've all had our own experiences with epic email fails, and you send something out and immediately you're like, no, that's exactly what I didn't want to go out. So we're going to talk through this afternoon basically what our fails look like. We're going to talk about some industry fails. We also want to talk about preventative maintenance strategies, some recovery strategies, and we want to hear from you guys about what you've learned about your own fails and how you recover and how you move forward from things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to advance it one more slide. Is it the green button? We'll try the green button. Here we are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Skarnecchia. I am the CRM and Consumer Data Manager at Scott's Miracle-Gro in Marysville, Ohio. I've been working in the email industry for about 3 years now. Prior to that, I was working in design for about 5 years.
I'm Bree Loesch. I'm the Email Marketing Manager at The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio, OH. And I've been in email marketing for 3 years, and I've been in digital marketing for about 7.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Larson. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing at Skipta. Skipta is the leading social network of specialized medical communities for verified healthcare professionals. And I've been dedicated and really getting into email for the past 3 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Picard. I work at the International Council of Shopping Centers. I've been in digital marketing and email marketing for about 10 years.
Very good. Thanks, Kristen. Like I said, my name is Kate Creamer. I'm with Scaled Agile. I'm their email marketing manager. What we do at Scaled Agile, we help enterprise organizations take agile and lean development practices and apply them across the business to basically move big ships fast. And, whoop, we're going to go back a couple slides. There we go. Talking about fails, that's relevant timing. One of my experiences at my last organization, so I was with Make Music until very recently, and Make Music does music education and music notation software. I've got email on the brain. And a couple different brands, very different target audiences, and when I was super new to email, this was maybe a month in, I was just trying to figure out our ESP and ran some things by my boss. I was like, hey, I want to do some suppression testing. I don't really know how this works, which red flag. So I put together this email. I was like, oh, I'll just pull in another template that has like one of our sales guys' names, and I'll put together a suppression test, subject line suppression test. And I accidentally sent an email from Smart Music, our music education brand, to 500,000 opted out Finale customers with our sales guy's personal cell phone number, no one subscribed, and subject line suppression test. And the best part about the whole thing was that one of our product managers actually got a text very shortly thereafter from his son, who was on that list, that said, I take it the suppression test was ... Next text, unsuccessful. So I know the pain of a mega email fail.
I also had a major fail along the way. My organization is a membership-driven organization that offers programs to our members for free, but we also allow non-members to attend for a fee. This is why dynamic content, for us at least, is very important. We were doing our extensive proofing of our emails, and then when I say extensive, I mean it goes through 7 people testing layout, content, grammar. We have somebody on point just for grammar alone for all of our marketing efforts. And so we want to test both the member and the non-member version. So we turned off the dynamic content flag so we could see both versions of them. And all was going well. We made our edits, we were ready to send it out, and we hit send. And I was like, okay, I got my email, I'm on my work email I got within like 2 minutes. I was like, okay, great. Everybody else is saying, oh, it looks great. And I was like, okay, good. And then probably about half hour later, I was just happening on my personal email, and I was like, I got the same email saying I can attend for free. It's like, okay, so I go to my CRM system. I was like, I'm not a member, I don't think. Nope. I was like, oh, maybe they changed the segment list to be only for members. And since I'm a seed, that's why I'm seeing this. Nope. And that is when I was in pure panic mode. I was just like, oh my God, what happened? We sent it to thousands upon thousands of people saying, come to our program for free. That normally costs $900. So it wasn't like a nice little giveaway item. I was like, okay, this is going to be great. And ladies and gentlemen, that was the day I realized that I'm going to start dreaming about winning the Mega Millions, go out to a yacht where I have no service and no email fails.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, my company is membership-based as well, and it's free for our physician members. And Skipta is really the overall brand, and then we have a bunch of sub-brands underneath, each dedicated to the different physician specialties and allied health specialties as well. And so when this email fail happened, I was the sole person on the email team coding, setting up the email, and most importantly, red flag QAing everything myself. And so it's never a good idea to QA your own work, especially when it comes to send setup. And so what I had done is I had built this email around this patient case study, and I figured out what physicians would be most interested in commenting and helping out this other physician with this complicated case. And I set it up and I sent, and I was feeling really good about it. And it ended up being a filtering issue where instead of all for the criteria, it was any, which is a critical error because then it ended up going to everyone in our entire database, which was our pharmaceutical clients, our members, and everyone internally. And so that was just a really fun time for me because, as we know, email is a very visible part of all of our companies. And so then literally everyone is texting me, emailing, calling me, like, why did I get this? People are confused. We had one person working as our community manager, and so she gets all of our email replies to have a personalized response back. And so then she's getting everything like, what is this community? I have never heard of it because they're not necessarily aware of all of the other brands if they are a certain medical specialist. And so that just ended up being quite a big day and a big fail. And again, I also wanted to go to a deserted island for a little bit and just hide.
That sounds rough. This is like email therapy. It's making me feel better about my own failures. All of these other email marketers also have had big fails. You may have heard higher ed is sometimes a little bit behind the times in marketing, so we were trying to combat that and use modern marketing tactics. So we were on an ESP that didn't have marketing automation functionality, so we were piloting a new marketing automation tool. Super stoked to try out these new awesome programs and just improve our email marketing efforts. So right off the bat, we set up a triggered welcome for our newsletter subscribers. We set up a hygiene program for lapsed and never openers. Everything was great. We're really excited about doing these things. So we check our data. A few weeks in, our hygiene program had been running, and we realized that the number of people receiving our hygiene emails in a series of 3 that were supposed to go 7 days apart, people would get their first email. If they opened that, they'd drop out of the program. Well, we realized the same number of people had gotten all of them. That's interesting. Surely someone has opened one of these. So we go in and start looking at the data, and we realize they had all 3 gone about 2 minutes apart to everyone. So we said, hey, you haven't responded in a while. Hey, we miss you. Hey. We really don't want to say goodbye, but it looks like we have to. We still haven't responded. It's almost like
Maria, I think you might have some separation anxiety.
I'm getting a little sweaty just thinking about it. So that was a great first attempt at email marketing automation for us. So anyways, the silver lining was that this was with our least engaged audience, so that was a plus. So you're like, okay, we figured it out, we're gonna recover from this. So we resubscribed them, they had been unsubscribed, resubscribed them so that they could naturally run back through the program, which we had fixed. So everything was great. What we did not think about was our welcome series, which we had not set to only receive once. So everyone that had just gotten 3 emails in a row from us got another welcome email from us.
You just wanted to make them feel very welcome.
Exactly. We're so sorry and welcome back.
At Scott's Miracle-Gro, our email team supports 6 major brands. One of our brands is Tomcat. It's all about rodent control. So think rat baits, mouse traps, snake repellent, all of the products that people want to receive emails about. So it took our brand team really a long time to agree upon even sending emails out. But we finally decided that we're going to do a quarterly cadence, just like kind of a quarterly newsletter. We hadn't actually sent to our Tomcat list for approximately a year, which is a really long time to not engage via email with a list. The list was about 25,000 people, so we said, hey, let's give it a go. Let's send something out. The first email we sent out was about mouse baits, mouse traps, that type of content. And since it had been a while since we had sent out a Tomcat email message, I thought, I'm going to continue to monitor this all day, see what the open rates are, fingers crossed, hoping it goes well. So I'm checking, and I'm seeing really great open rates. I'm seeing excellent click rates. I'm super excited because I didn't really expect that for rodent control, but it was great. And so I thought, this is awesome. I'm going to be able to report back to brand, tell them that the performance was awesome, and that I think we're going to be great going forward. A few hours later, I get a call from our call center saying they're getting repeated calls from consumers that had received some Tomcat email earlier in the day, and they can't unsubscribe from it. They also don't remember how they got on the list. They're confused why they're even receiving it. Again, we had not reached out to them in an entire year. So I'm thinking, okay, well, let me go into our CRM, check it out, investigate, at the time, we only had a preference link in our footer. We didn't have a global unsubscribe link. So I'm thinking maybe they just can't find it in the footer. It's kind of confusing how to use it. So I go in there. During this period of time, I now get copied on an email from legal. This has now escalated to legal, so they've gotten involved saying, hey, we're getting a ton of calls that people can't unsubscribe from this email you sent out. That's violating canned spam laws. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how is this even possible? I double check, triple check every single link that goes out. We go through the whole proofing process. So I go and I send myself a test message, expecting the preference center to pop up when I click on it, and no. It's a blank page with some black text. It's an error message. So you know those memes, expectation versus reality? Yeah, this was that situation.
I'm going to put a quick pause in this. So we want to address expectations versus reality, but 2 things I want to pull out of this. First of all, I love that the 2 of you, Kristen and Amanda, you guys both talked about that moment when you're not quite ready to deal with the reality that you made a mistake, where you're like, no, surely, and so you walk it back. Like, no, it should be this. Oh, it's not that. Okay, it should be that. That's definitely not it. And then like all of a sudden you have that reality of like, oh, crap. It's real. And so to do a little bit of level setting before we jump into that, I want to ask you guys in the audience to raise your hands who's made a mistake in an email. You guys have all had that moment. You get it. So I'm going to remember that when we ask you guys later, so just so you know, I saw all those hands. We've all made some epic mistakes. So Amanda, you mentioned expectations versus reality.
Yep. So this is what I expected to see. I expected to see our preference center, everything showing properly, working properly. What I actually saw, this message. So of course I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? Consumer care, our customer call center has to deal with hundreds of calls and emails coming in. People are furious. They want unsubscribed. So the brunt of this, the whole tornado after effect of this one mistake, now the call center has to deal with. They have to actually manually unsubscribe each consumer that wanted unsubscribed. I felt so horrible. I wanted to help in any way, shape, or form. I offered to unsubscribe people myself. I mean, we're talking like 1,000 people who wanted unsubscribed. So just one small mistake caused a lot of errors and issues kind of for our entire team.
Now, did you send them lunch or something?
That's a good point. You feel so bad, you send them kind of a cookie basket, like, hey, I'm so sorry, won't have it again. So yeah, it was just one of those times where you just feel absolutely awful because you can't even fix the problem yourself.
Right?
Another group has to actually do the work.
It's even worse.
That's the worst too when you're dealing with your internal teams and you're like, I care about you and I'm so sorry I've done this to you. That's when I mentioned earlier my big email fail at Make Music. It was like a month into my job, it was brand new, and I loved my team. I would do anything for them at that point. So I screwed everything up that one day, and then the next morning I came in with 6 dozen different kinds of muffins. I was like, I think that's really important. I mean, that's something that we had all talked about on the panel earlier, or in panel prep rather, where it's not just managing the consumer's expectations, but also how do you handle your team when something like that happens in an industry or in a silo that's so visible.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we want to highlight fails happen to the best of us. These are some of the ones that we've seen across the industry from brands that we know and love. This is an email from Google, which obviously the rendering didn't go quite as they expected. So we're going to see things like rendering issues. You also may see inconsistencies in content. So you may not notice right at first glance here, but in this Meyer email, right in that bottom content block, you see 50% off. And I believe, I can't see it from here.
It's a Nerf product.
It's a Nerf
Nerf
product
blaster.
Yeah.
with M&M images, because why not?
Kids love both.
Right? Easter baskets. That makes sense. And then this one from American Eagle that's just not in a language that their target audience is going to read in the United States. Couple more, obviously. This one from Avis, push notifications. This speaks to the fact that it's not always, it's often not
always
ever email exclusively. So many of these things are tied together. I know some of the panels earlier were talking about just coherency across channels. So that's really important to remember. Make sure your email and your push strategy, in-app, stuff like that, that talks. Then, of course, we've seen, Bree, you might be familiar.
So this one, I literally got 4 welcome emails for their 4 different newsletters, as you can see, within seconds. So I was just like, oh, goodness, what happened here?
We're so excited to have you here.
Yes.
And then finally, this gem from LinkedIn. This is one of my favorite personalization fails that I've seen. They're trying so hard.
I love it because it really lets you know what they wanted to do.
Yes.
Right? That's the thing. And so this is what's really cool, too, is that often when you see personalization fails, especially, you see what the intent was, and you see what people were trying to do. So I think that actually offers this really great opportunity for recovery when just like, it's all laid out there. So what can you do to recover with consumers and subscribers to just be like, oh, there's a person here, I made a mistake. So you will make mistakes, and what matters most is how you learn from those mistakes. So we've talked about industry fails, we've talked about our own fails. I want to walk you guys through what are some of the preventative maintenance strategies that you've learned after making those mistakes?
I know I personally set up a second account at my company, so we will never, ever turn off that dynamic content element ever again. So I can see both proofs and I can see the renderings across everything, especially because we were undergoing ADA compliance testing for website, app, everything at the same time. So I really need to make sure that I see every single test and what the proof is going to really look like.
Yeah, and I did something similar. So I created kind of those membership emails. I created, dummy membership emails that all go into my inbox. And so if I'm ever sending a segmented send or anything like that again, I can realize a little bit quicker than having other people tell me about it that something did go wrong and something did go out wrong. And so also, not having myself QA my own work is definitely one of the things, and that's one of the benefits that I've had with being able to build out a team to support me.
How do you build out that process internally?
So what you mean, like whenever you look at how to...
Yeah, so you're not the only person QAing. Like, how do you make that pitch to your team? What did that conversation look like when you had it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty obvious that you shouldn't QA your own work. And so what we did is I sat down and I said, okay, like, these are the elements that we want to QA. And in my experience, like, when you have like 7 people look at something, what happens is as you go through, people are like, well, the person before them, definitely, he's really good at proofing. And so I don't need to check it as thoroughly because I already have 6 other people that signed off. There's not as much ownership on that QA step. And so what I've done is I have people own very specific parts of what goes out for all of our campaigns, so that way they know that they really need to take a look at it. And it's a lot of responsibility of the person who set it up, as well as a lot of responsibility on the person who QAs it. Now, that's not saying that that's perfect, of course, but it really does, having that ownership there, I've seen improvements in the less amount of mistakes that have gone out.
We do something similar. So we have all the content and the copy and the initial links checked at the beginning, but towards the last 2 stages of us is that we have somebody check every single link, and literally their job is to check the links, and then it goes to the proofreader right after it. So we know that somebody is accountable. So
Exactly.
I think that's the best process as well.
Yeah, I learned that marketing automation is not a toy, and you shouldn't get so excited that you should start sending it out. No, we try to be very careful about our programs and how we set it up, but I think after those couple of mistakes, we became much more methodical about checking everything and also building program simulations. So we'll build a whole test file with multiple people from our office with different settings so that we can see different dynamic content being populated, and we can see lots of different variations of the emails and also see the whole program in its entirety. And that also helps us identify connected pieces and parts that we may not be thinking about, like the triggered welcome. So I think that's really helped us cut back on our mistakes and also just prevent mistakes from happening. I think, yeah, the testing is definitely key. I think someone mentioned earlier too, just because it's marketing automation definitely does not mean it's set it and forget it. So I think we learned a valuable lesson in monitoring. I had mentioned we had realized this a few weeks after the program had been running. So with things like that, I think just making sure that you're constantly checking your data and monitoring your programs, not setting them and just letting them run. So we have weekly check-ins now with our team where we're reviewing the data from all of our programs, making sure the sent numbers make sense, the engagement numbers make sense, things are kind of triggering the way that they're supposed to be, and that's really helped us not only prevent things from happening, but also if something is going incorrectly, we're identifying it quickly so that we can address it.
And I think that's a really good point as well. We've gone over all these really cool things that we can go back and do with our teams and stuff, but I think it's important to evaluate if you have that bandwidth, I hate using that word, to actually take the time to make sure that it's done correctly, and to make sure that you have the team in place. That way you can do it and minimize your chances of having these gigantic failures.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I'll chime in too. So we took the typical tactical measures to solve the actual problem that had occurred. So nobody was able to unsubscribe. We worked closely with our CRM platform at the time that didn't have a global unsubscribe link and worked with them to get one created. So we now have a global unsubscribe link and a preference center link on every single email footer that goes out, and we have not had the issue again. But the thing that I think our team learned the most from this mistake is really our relationship with our call center. So the call center is, when it comes to any type of consumer goods or even really any service and products, the call center is really pivotal to any message that goes out. They're the ones responding to when people call in or people email back. So we were able to kind of build up this relationship with them where we put them into our process, our email process. So when we review emails, we proof emails, they're copied on those, and they actually give us input of what they're hearing from consumers, what people are calling in and asking questions about. And we adjust our content to I guess, solve for those things that kind of come in. They're a lot happier now that we are including them in that process, and it also helps them to be, they also know like the date and the time when we're sending every single email out, so they can be adequately staffed to address any questions that do come in.
And I actually had a question for you. So like, how did you recover from not the internal perspective, but from the outside perspective? Because you offered these people this free opportunity. So how did you kind of able to take that back or recover that relationship?
So we had a different approach. We talked to the person who was running the event, that program. We talked with our head of marketing as well, and just trying to figure out really what was going on. On every single one of our emails, we include a tracking code that's visible so you can sign up and we can know really what effort you came from. And this has been standard across all of our different platforms. And we actually just made that tracking code or promo code become a discount code. So we kind of like took it a little bit back so we didn't have to be like, oops, we did something wrong. We did that on purpose, like it helped build up all these people who were currently in our prospect list of like who we were trying to become members, since we are a membership-driven organization. And then we contacted their account reps who were trying to work on them, and we're like, now you should reach out and say, look what I did for you. Don't you want to come and join our event? We did that just for you. So we did take a little bit of a different approach.
Okay.
I love that. It's what I'm hearing from all of you is really cool, in that email fails afford us this incredible opportunity, not only to educate internally and connect with the people who we're working with every day, but also connect with our customers. And one thing that I've kind of learned to censor myself on a little bit at work is, when I've got so many people who are bought into email and who know the value of it and who want to do it a particular way, that's a really, really valuable place to be, because so often people just are having to prove the value of email. So if you have people who are bought in and saying, well, change this and do this and do this, take advantage of that and use that as an opportunity to not only educate internally, but get eyes on it. And anytime, if you're like me, if you get a change and you're like, if I see one more change, I'm going to rage, just check yourself and say, how much worse would this be if this was an epic fail? Because that set of emotions, the latter set of emotions behind an epic fail, I think is way worse than that moment of like, I'm not putting a comma there.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for learning, for sure.
I think buy-in is important, and I also think it helps people kind of understand the importance of email. So if you're like me and you're on an email team of 2, you really can use the extra help from other people. So I think it really helps with cross-team collaboration too, where maybe if your team doesn't have capacity to address an issue, and maybe your development team could help, or your analytics team could pitch in, or your copywriters can help review emails and proof emails. I think it really helps to get time allotted from other teams so they can pitch in and make sure that we're putting out the best product that we can.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, for sure.
So we've talked about a little bit of preventative maintenance, but when the inevitable fail happens, what do you do? These are a couple examples from brands that we thought did a great job with their oops email. I think, of course, whenever you have the opportunity to use playful copy, I know that's not a voice and tone for all brands, but own your fail. That's really important. Own your fail, stick to your brand voice, and it's okay to be human with people. Whatever you do, don't panic. So when you guys have failed, you learn from those fails. How do you know when you want to send an oops email, or if to send an oops email? What's your experience there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my case, because we had emailed everyone, we also saw that there could be potential issues around deliverability and different things if we continue to then send out another email, because not everyone opened the email, and not everyone expressed confusion or clicked through or even spent that much time on that email to maybe even recognize it. And so we took it, so we didn't actually send out a recovery email in that instance, and so we just took it to the one-on-one relationship level of having, we stepped in and helped our community manager of one, and so we helped explain, and it actually really helped us to explain, hey, this is Skipta, you're part of one community here. There's actually all of this network of communities, and so it kind of allowed us, because healthcare professionals know each other, to expand that brand a little bit. We used it as an opportunity to explain, hey, yes, you got this case. We have other awesome cases for you that actually are relevant to what you know. And so maybe you know someone that is relevant with this case, and hey, you know what? We're going to offer you an incentive to refer them to us to answer this case.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the situation. In my particular case, since we broke up with them in a 5-minute succession of 3 emails, followed by a welcome, we felt the oops email was not the way to go. So we skipped the oops email on that one. But in other cases where we've had a broken link or missed subject, something in the subject line that was inaccurate, in those cases we do send out an oops email. So I think it really just depends on what type of mistake it was. So I think you just kind of have to evaluate and say, what is the action you were trying to get the person to do? If you were trying to get them somewhere where they weren't able to complete the action, then I think maybe an oops email would make sense.
I think it also depends on the nature of your business. If it's impacting the trust of your customers with your business, I mean, I'm thinking like banking, insurance, anything related to identity. People could be concerned if there was kind of a big mistake they receive an email about, then I would send a follow-up. But like in my case, I didn't send a follow-up for, nobody wanted to receive another Tomcat email.
You can unsubscribe now.
Yeah. I had actually previously worked for a natural gas company, and we had to send an I'm sorry, oops email out because we made a mistake where we told about 200 customers that we were going to be doing service in their neighborhood, and people were calling in asking where the trucks were. Yeah, we sent it to the wrong people, so we sent a follow-up saying, hey, sorry we made this mistake. The service actually isn't in your area. So it really just depends on the nature of your business, if it's impacting the service of your customers, and even if it's a little bit more of a serious topic.
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of the guideline for me is, has what we sent out damaged your relationship with your customers? Easy things to look for are wrong dates, wrong links, anything where the customer is expecting one experience and they're getting something very different. Bree, I think your experience was actually really unique in that you sent so many emails. So another oops email, the fact that you took a step back and were like, that's probably a bad idea, is a lot better than a lot of other companies would do. So when we were planning this, we kind of got together and we put together just questions to ask yourself before you know, who needs to be involved? How do I handle this? Like, what's the game plan? So I think this is a pretty good framework actually for anytime something wrong goes out, just like go through these questions and calm yourself for a minute, find your inner zen. And then from there, here's what you do when things go wrong. So like we said earlier, own your mistakes. Own your voice, your brand, and understand what you actually need to communicate in a follow-up email.
Exactly, and I like the be quick, clear, and transparent part because there's really no purpose, especially whenever you're communicating internally, to kind of, the one thing you want to do whenever you make a mistake that affected so much is just say, oh, well, like fluff it out and tell them like, yes, we're doing this, this, that, and this, and just owning it and then being just very clear, quick, and precise pretty much clears up any concerns internally that this will happen again.
Yeah, agreed. And I also think I like to use the opportunity to streamline your process. I think having that big fail for us was definitely an eye-opener in how to use marketing automation, and I think it really, really helped with our QA process and our testing process, and now we're very, very diligent about our testing and just making sure we're simulating all of our programs first and checking everything, thinking through all scenarios to make sure everything is going exactly as we would expect it to go and that we're providing a good audience experience.
And kind of piggybacking off that, it was on the previous slide, but sometimes mistakes are not a process issue. Sometimes mistakes are just because we're human beings and mistakes happen every once in a while. And so even if you followed every step of the process, you're still gonna make a mistake. And so sometimes you have to take a step back and say, okay, was the process followed? Is there something missing from the process? Or was the process followed and a mistake happened? And so maybe you shouldn't be hammering down on the individual who made a mistake, point it out, let them know that it happened. But then if it continually happens, maybe then it is bigger than that human issue.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think sometimes one issue can cause a lot of extra process that may inhibit the work that you need to get done. So I think making sure it really was something that needs to be part of a process ad, I think is important to make sure you're not slowing everything down.
Because I know if we did everything for every single typo and everything else that possibly went out in all the years we've been in business, we would have like a 300-step process at this point in time.
Well, and I think that's really important to highlight too, is that anytime if the people that you're working with don't understand email, if they're not really close to it, it can feel really yucky to send out an email fail and then have somebody be like, why did you screw this up? And you're like, I'm a person, I'm sorry. And like,
My favorite is when you send out the email and then someone emails, hey, was that a test?
right. And like, that's
Like
very kind.
immediate heart stop. Yeah.
But like when you do own your mistakes, while you are communicating with all of your internal teams, also ask for help.
Yeah.
Hey, communication, social media team, can you put something out? Can you help me with this? I noticed that this went out to too many accounts for a specific account manager, salesperson. Ask them if they can just reach out to their point person and say, look, we know we sent this out. We're working on a fix just so our call center won't get thousands upon thousands of phone calls. You really don't want to upset them. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's a huge opportunity for sure. With that, we want to open it up to you guys. I saw so many of you raise your hands earlier, so no copping out here. We want to hear from you guys. Michelle's walking around with this mic. We want to hear, what are some of your fails? Alternatively, what are some of your successes and learnings from your fails? Is anybody brave enough to step up?
I remember when you do have your mistakes, don't fear the next send. Have confidence in yourself. Build yourself back up. Work on your relationships with your team members also. So just, we know you all have your fails, so.
Right. I think I talked to Home Depot earlier. Anybody from their team want to? No? Yeah. My guy, thank you.
Hi, Adam, Home Depot. My team rarely makes mistakes. One of our partners missed a segmentation issue on one of our acquisition efforts to our pros, and so we really, rank up those subject lines when we have an offer. We typically don't offer coupons, so this was a specific effort that offered them something, and it went out to, gosh, I don't know how many, at least 1 million people that it shouldn't have gone to, pros. So our creative team actually responded super fast and had a really creative oops graphic. We sent out an oops email with an offer then that actually would work for them, even though they were already members. We were like, hey, sorry, here's another offer. And it turned out to drive a considerable amount of revenue. So it sort of was an interesting silver lining, a little bit of surprise and delight, even though it was an oops.
It was an oops
Yeah.
success.
So I wonder, did you actually build in, besides the oops part, did you actually build in that new type of acquisition offer to those members already for the future?
Well, the problem is now, we typically have to comp our metrics from last year. So now, the question is, should we do another oops next year on purpose? I don't know.
Here's another question for the audience. I'd be curious to know, has anybody done like a fake oops email? No? Nobody's committed to it? Okay. Oh, we've got a hand in the back.
Oh, there we go.
Do we mind? There we go. Thanks, Arthur.
And the headline was "Boo," and Dell doesn't have a sense of humor. I go screaming down to the creative department, like, who screwed up? It must be a test. We deployed "Boo" to 13 million people, and it worked great. And it actually, in that case, was designed. But to answer your question, now Rule of Law, it used to be Smart Bargains, would once a week send out ooh, we made a mistake, because they found they got a 2 or 3% better open rate. So it was like, will you stop doing that? All my other clients think we're making mistakes constantly. They're like, we're getting a better open rate.
I wonder if those oops in the subject line would have pushed higher open rates for the previous email, ooh, can I get a free laptop?
Right? That's like the flight error deals that people get so excited about when they see there's an error. They're like, I could go to the Bahamas for $2. That's amazing.
But I have to say, our engagement from recovering from the mistake that we made, we actually ended up building more of those one-to-one relationships that is really the goal of email. I think someone said earlier, email is just a very personal one-on-one relationship builder. And so what that allowed us to do, we actually gained more members from that, because then we started building advocates for the brand who then reached out to people to join communities that they're not even a part of. And so then I was sitting there like, wow, maybe, we really should keep doing this sort of thing. But it really helped us build out an advocacy program, which is something that we had been trying to do, and now we sort of had more of a framework for how to do it because of a mistake.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's such a cool opportunity to build relationships. And like we said earlier, I think this is just the through line through the whole panel is just, you realize that there are humans on both sides of things, and if you're authentic and transparent about that and saying, hey, we're doing our very best for you, and we want to communicate this awesome message to you and make your life better because of what we're offering you, and occasionally we're going to have a typo or a broken link along the way, people are generally pretty understanding and forgiving about that.
I've gotten a couple of oops emails where they put someone's name in it, or they'll blame the person on purpose, and I think those are hilarious. To be like, John messed up the last email, sorry. It's really showing there was a human on the other end, and kind of just makes you laugh.
When I had my oops with Make Music, I think I took that maybe to the extreme with like the personal cell phone number in the body of the email. Our poor sales guy, Alan, is like, bless him. He is so kind and so sweet and so quiet. And honestly, it's amazing that he wants to talk to people, and sales is part of his job all day. But the poor guy got so many phone calls. And I like ran over to his desk. I was like, I'm so sorry. I know you don't like this at all. Maybe don't like me at all. But hopefully we'll not do that again. Process improvements.
Next time, he'll have his phone number redirect to your line.
I know, I was waiting for it. It was like 4 years of just like walking on eggshells, like, when is Alan gonna get me back? Very cool. Well, thank you guys all so much for joining us. We would be happy to take questions after the panel. Please come find us. We're all very approachable. We're people up here. So, thanks.